If you want to become more disciplined, I'm going to explain exactly how to do it. I'm not some productivity guru who has it all figured out. I'm still figuring this out just like you. But what I've realized is that most of us have been sold a complete lie about what discipline actually is. We think it's about forcing ourselves through willpower and self-punishment. But that's backwards. These are 5 fundamental misunderstandings about discipline that keep people trapped. The first misunderstanding is that discipline is about restriction. It's about cutting things out, saying no, and limiting yourself. And this seems logical on the surface, but it actually gets discipline completely backwards. When most people think about discipline, they think about what they can't do. I can't eat that food. I can't skip that workout. I can't stay up late. It's this whole mentality of self-punishment and deprivation. But here's what's actually happening. When you frame discipline as restriction, you are fighting against yourself every single day. You are constantly using willpower to resist things you want. And willpower is finite. It runs out. Think about it. You don't come back from work excited about all the things you can't do. You don't wake up motivated by your list of restrictions. That's not sustainable, and it's not how discipline actually works. Real discipline isn't about restriction at all. It's about freedom. And this seems backwards, but let me explain what I mean. True discipline is about designing your life so you can do more of what you actually want. It's about building systems that free you from constantly making decisions. It's about creating things for the things that matter by eliminating the ones that don't. When you are disciplined about your morning routine, you're not restricting yourself. You are freeing yourself from decision fatigue. When you are disciplined about your finances, you're not limiting your spending. You are creating freedom to spend on what you actually value. When you are disciplined about your health, you're not punishing your body. You are creating the energy and capacity to do everything else you want to do. Here's the key difference. Restriction is imposed from the outside. Discipline comes from clarity about what you want. Restriction feels like a prison. Discipline feels like a choice. So if you've been struggling with discipline because it feels too hard or too limiting, you are approaching it wrong. You are trying to restrict yourself into submission instead of designing yourself into freedom. The tactical shift here is simple. Instead of asking, what do I need to cut out? Ask, what do I want to create space for? Instead of focusing on what you can't do, focus on what becomes possible when you're intentional about your choices. Instead of building walls, build bridges towards the life you actually want. This is the foundation everything else builds on. Because once you understand that discipline creates freedom instead of taking it away, everything changes. The second misunderstanding is that discipline is binary. You either have it or you don't. You are either a disciplined person or you are not. And this one is going to completely shift how you see yourself. Most people walk around with this story in their head. I'm just not a disciplined person. Some people are naturally good at this stuff, but I'm not. I've tried so many times and failed. So I must not just have what it takes. But this binary thinking is destroying your potential before you even start. Here's what's actually true. Discipline isn't a personality trait you are born with. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed systematically. Think about it this way. You don't say, I'm not a piano person after trying to play once and sounding terrible. You understand that playing piano requires practice, technique, and gradual improvement. But somehow with discipline, we expect ourselves to be perfect immediately. And when we are not, we conclude we are just not disciplined people. The most disciplined people you and I know weren't born that way. They learned specific systems and practiced them until they became automatic. They figured out what works for their brain, their schedule, their life. They treated discipline like a craft to be developed, not a gene they either have or don't have. Here's the breakthrough. Once you stop seeing discipline as something you are and start seeing it as something you do, everything changes. Instead of, I'm not disciplined, you ask, what discipline skills do I need to learn? Instead of, I always feel like this, you ask, what systems can I build to make this easier? Instead of, some of us are just better at this, you ask, what are they doing differently that I can learn? The tactical shift here is to start small and build evidence. Pick one tiny habit and execute it consistently for a week. Not because the habit itself matters, but because you are proving to yourself that you can be disciplined. You are collecting evidence against the story that you are not just a disciplined person. Maybe it's making your bed every morning. Maybe it's drinking a glass of water when you wake up. Maybe it's putting your phone in another room while you walk for just 30 minutes. The specific action doesn't matter. What matters is building the skill of following through on what you said you are going to do. And once you do that consistently, you add another small thing, then another. You're not trying to transform your entire life overnight. You're building the meta skill of discipline itself. And here's what happens. As you start these small wins, your identity starts to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who lacks discipline. You start seeing yourself as someone who is learning discipline. And eventually, you become someone who is disciplined. Not because you were born that way, but because you built yourself that way. The third misunderstanding is that discipline requires motivation. That you need to feel inspired or pumped up to be disciplined. And this is probably the most common trap people fall into. Here's what usually happens. You watch a motivational video on Sunday night. You feel fired up about changing your life. You set these ambitious goals and make these grand plans. Monday morning comes. You feel great and you execute perfectly. Tuesday, still pretty good. Wednesday, the motivation starts to fade. Thursday, you are really not feeling it anymore. Friday, you skip your routine entirely. And by the weekend, you are back to your old patterns, wondering why you can't stick to anything. The problem isn't that you lack discipline. The problem is that you are trying to run discipline on motivation fuel. And motivation is the worst possible fuel for discipline, because motivation is an emotion and emotions are temporary by nature. They come and go based on your mood, your energy, what happened that day, how much sleep you got. You can't build a reliable system on something that is unreliable. Here's what actually works. Discipline and motivation are completely separate systems. Motivation is about feeling like doing something. Discipline is about doing something regardless of how you feel. The most disciplined people we know don't rely on feeling motivated. They've built systems that work whether they are motivated or not. They understand that action creates motivation, not the other way around. Think about it like this. You brush your teeth because you woke up, and that's what you do when you wake up. It's automatic. It is divorced from your emotional state. That's what real discipline looks like. Here's the tactical shift. Stop waiting to feel like doing things. Start building systems that make feelings irrelevant. Instead of "I'll work out when I'm motivated," create a specific time, place, and trigger for working out. Instead of "I'll eat healthy when I feel like it," prepare your meals in advance so the decision is already made. Instead of "I'll be productive when I'm inspired," design your environment so that the productive choice is the easy choice. The goal isn't to eliminate motivation entirely. Motivation is great when it shows up, but discipline means you don't need it to show up. You've built systems that work with or without it. And here's the beautiful part. When you start taking action consistently, regardless of how you feel, motivation actually starts to follow. Because nothing is more motivating than seeing yourself become the person you want to be. But you can't wait for that feeling to start. You have to start to get that feeling. The fourth misunderstanding is that discipline is about willpower. That it's about forcing yourself to do things through pure mental strength. And this is where most people burn out and give up. Here's the typical approach. You decide you want to change something. You rely on willpower to push through resistance. You force your way through the first few days or weeks. Eventually, your willpower gets depleted. You break, you fail, you feel guilty, and you conclude that you just don't have enough willpower to be disciplined. But the problem isn't your willpower. The problem is that you're relying on willpower as your main strategy, because willpower is a terrible strategy for building discipline. Here's why. Willpower is a finite resource. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every time you force yourself to do something you don't want to do, you are depleting it. And once it's gone, it's gone. This is why you can be disciplined all day and completely break down at night. This is why you can stick to your diet all week and then binge on the weekend. You have been running on willpower, and willpower has an expiration date. Real discipline isn't about having more willpower. It's about needing less willpower. It's about designing your life so the discipline choice becomes the obvious choice. The successful athlete doesn't rely on willpower to train. They've made training so automatic and integrated into their life that much training will actually require more effort. Here's the tactical shift. Instead of trying to increase your willpower, focus on decreasing your need for willpower. If you want to eat healthier, don't keep junk food in the house. Remove the decision entirely. If you want to work out consistently, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Better yet, sleep in them. Design your environment so the thing you want to do is the path of least resistance. If you want to read more, put books everywhere and hide your phone. The most disciplined people we know aren't constantly battling themselves. They've set up their lives so discipline feels effortless. Not because it is effortless, but because they've done the hard work of intelligent design up front. They've built systems that work with human psychology and not against it. And once you understand this, you stop trying to be a willpower warrior. You start being a systems architect. The final misunderstanding is that discipline means doing things you hate. If it doesn't make you feel bad, it doesn't count. That discipline is supposed to be a constant battle against your natural desires. And this might be the most destructive misunderstanding of all, because it sets up this fighting relationship between you and your goals. Here's how most people think about it. If you enjoy your workout, you are not being disciplined enough. If eating healthy feels good, you must be doing it wrong. If you look forward to your morning routine, it's not really discipline. There is this weird belief that discipline has to be miserable to be legitimate. Real discipline isn't about suffering through things you hate. It's about aligning your actions with what you actually value. And when your actions align with your values, they don't feel like punishment. They feel like expression. Think about it. The most disciplined people in any field aren't grinding through misery every day. They found ways to genuinely enjoy the process. The disciplined entrepreneur doesn't hate working on their business. They are energized by building something meaningful. Here's what's really happening. When you try to discipline yourself into doing things you fundamentally hate, you are fighting against your core nature. And that fight is exhausting. It's unsustainable. Eventually, your authentic self wins and you quit. But when you align discipline with your actual values, and find ways to enjoy the process, discipline becomes self-reinforcing. You do it because you want to, not because you have to. Here's the tactical shift. Instead of forcing yourself to do things you hate, get curious about why you hate them in the first place. Maybe you hate the gym, but you love feeling strong. So find a way to get strong that you don't hate. Maybe you hate traditional studying, but you love understanding how things work. So find a way to learn that feeds that curiosity. The goal isn't to eliminate all discomfort. Some things worth doing are naturally challenging, but there's a difference between productive discomfort and pointless suffering. Productive discomfort is the burn in your muscles when you're getting stronger. Pointless suffering is forcing yourself through a workout routine you basically hate. One builds you up, the other burns you out. Here is the deeper truth. Discipline isn't about overriding who you are. It's about becoming who you want to be. And who you want to be shouldn't be someone who hates their own life. When you approach discipline this way, something beautiful happens. You stop seeing it as this external force trying to control you. You start seeing it as the internal compass guiding you toward the life you actually want. And that's when discipline stops being something you do and starts being something you are. Now, understanding what discipline isn't doesn't automatically make you disciplined. How do you go from struggling with consistency to being so disciplined that being lazy actually feels harder? The truth is, there are 5 specific mental traps that turn ambition into procrastination. In this video, I break down each trap and exactly how to escape each one. Remember, the path is yours to walk, and as always, I'm in your corner rooting for you.